Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea DeHaan. I am the Outreach Coordinator for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and we are so thrilled to have you joining us today. I'm here with my colleague, Daniel Matthews, advisor in CHaSS advising, and also the pre-law advisor here at Utah State University. And together we put on the pre-law series. We try to host an event monthly to help our students who are exploring the possibility of legal careers prepare for those careers while they're still in college. A few housekeeping items for the day. While we can't see you, we do want to hear from you, and I would encourage you all to use the chat function to say hello, or you can communicate issues with me directly. You can also ask questions using our Q&A feature. That'll be usually at the bottom or the top of your screen, depending on whether you're using Zoom on your computer or on your phone. And we hope that you will bring your questions in. Dan will lead us through that Q&A at the end, or we can also have the option of unmuting you if you want to ask your question yourself. So we have a number of options there, and we do want to hear from you. And you can also find information about our upcoming events on our website. So we hope that you will stay tuned for those. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenter today and some of the guests who are with us, and then we'll get started. With more than 25 years of experience, Nate Alder is a litigator and trial attorney with Christensen Jensen, a top-rated Salt Lake City law firm, and currently focused on catastrophic personal injury and commercial litigation. Nate is the past president of the National Conference of Bar Presidents, where he was involved with diversity and inclusion efforts, and also the recipient of numerous awards, including the Peter W. Billings Sr. Award for Excellence in Dispute Resolution. Nate holds a JD and MPA from Indiana University and earned his BA in history at Utah State. And before I turn things over to Nate, I would also like to welcome Dave Hershey, who earned his bachelor's degree in English at USU and is currently the owner and managing partner at Hershey, Bear, and Clayton. Dave is joining us today to act as an additional resource for students seeking assistance with their law school applications. And we'll talk a bit more about this after Nate's presentation, so do stay tuned. With that, I am going to stop sharing my slides and welcome Nate Alder to start us off on this discussion today, specifically about personal statements and helping students prepare for law school applications. So Nate, with that, I will turn the time over to you.
Andrea, thanks so much. Appreciate the introduction. Professor Matthews, good to be with you as well. And Dave, thank you so much for joining me and being a resource and a help as we want to get students from Utah State ready for law school and their law school applications. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started here. Quick. So I appreciate the chance to kind of anticipate what some of you might be going through, because it was 30 years ago, actually 31 years ago, when I was perhaps contemplating law school, writing my personal statement and getting my grades together and my letter of recommendation and picking out law schools to go to. And I think I applied to 7 or 8 law schools and finally narrowed in on the one that turned out to be my #1 choice and where we went to school and had a great time, finished, and then became a lawyer. But there was a lot of fear and trepidation in the application process. So what I want to do today is help you be prepared to attack that problem, take on that challenge, face that adversity with real sophistication. And hopefully through, what I've prepared today, you'll come to realize that you have a community, you have fellow travelers, you have resources, you have friends, people that are here today, Dan and Dave and myself and others in the college, Andrea, and many people that want to, help you with your writing and help you with your statement, your application, and your submission. It's a public process. You should be loud and proud. You should say, hey, I'm applying to these 4 law schools and I need help. I'm writing my statement and I'd like people to help me edit. and people will step up and join you in that effort. So here we are. It's time to apply to law school. We got to get our personal statement ready. Let's dive right in. So I think that this is something that you have to have a plan for. It's something that you just can't show up and, in 10 hours, knock this thing out and say, hey, I'm done. I put 2 days in. I'm happy with my statement. You've applied for lots of scholarships and, fellowships and grants and opportunities and whatnot, programs where that says fill in this box, for 1,000 words or 1,000 characters or whatnot. And this is not one of those. This is something that you're going to be proud of for your whole career. It's going to be a pivotal moment for you. You're going to have thought long and hard about it. I'm going to say weeks, months, and if you're one of those, maybe a year or more as you plan. No reason to not start thinking about it now for a year from now, or if you're applying this holiday into January and February, start thinking about it now. That's why we have it here in the fall. So you got to have a plan, and it's an essay, it's a personal statement, it's a piece that you're going to write, and you can't write 14 pages. You can't write a novel. You have to make your point concise, short, sweet, to the point. But it's not one paragraph. And you'll see from one of the slides that I think my personal statement was 6 paragraphs, and I made my points in a couple of pages, and I had it all figured out, but I had spent months and months writing my personal statement. Proud of it to this day. So what will you say? Please don't repeat your resume. They have your resume. This is a story. You're going to be writing something about yourself in a narrative format, with prose, with text. You might have some deficiencies in your academic career, or in your future, or something that you lack, or something that's not going so well for you that you may want to address. An elephant in the room. Maybe you do. Maybe there's a semester that wasn't so good and you'd like to address that in a sentence or two. Maybe you have a pretty strong all-around submission, and you just need to kind of glide it, past the goal line with a really good statement. But plan for the months and the weeks that this is going to take. Understand this is not going to be a paper for a class, and do your own reading, do your own, pull out your own writing, find the things that you've been thinking about, things that are important to you, what has been influencing you, who are the writers, who are the thinkers that you enjoy reading, and see how they write, and start thinking about, how you might write for yourself in a way that impresses and is unique, authentic, and personal. All right, so why do we worry so much about this personal statement? Why put so much effort into it? Well, for me, I went to Indiana University. It was a brand new university for me. I'd never been there before. It was a fresh start. I wanted to start on, a running start, fresh legs. And I wanted that personal statement to really impress people at my new school. I wanted to meet the right people and have the right people come and try and look out for me and find me. The admissions committee, the assistant deans, oh, I read your personal statement. I really was looking forward to meeting you. That's what this personal statement does. It introduces me to them, and then they come out and find me. They give me an opportunity to come to their school when I show up in the middle of August, for that first day of class orientation. They'll remember me, and they might promote me a little bit. It's a chance. This is a chance for me to tell the story that I want to tell about myself. I want to connect with the people who are, at this new university. I'm going to tell them in this narrative, in this statement, who I am, what I've been thinking about, what's important to me, what my values are. And the other reason why we want to be good at this statement and do a great job is this is a moment for you professionally where you're going to, take some pride in your writing. And, the little things matter, the details matter. All the little points add up to a big point. And so if you can, do your very best on this statement, because you are going to be a writer in law school. You're going to be a writer as a lawyer. You're going to be a writer in all of these legal employment settings from here on out. So make it a goal to really do a great job on the statement. So that's the why. And maybe there's many more reasons, but think about some of those as motivations for why you want to do a good job. So part of your planning, part of your strategy is going to be finding things, gathering, thinking about things, talking to other people, building your community. Ask around who's applied to the University of California, Davis, who's applied to University of North Carolina, talk to people, who's been to the U recently that, I could connect with, a recent graduate, what's the alumni network up at Gonzaga or Creighton, UNLV, Sam Boyd, like, where are you going to go to law school? What are your 4 or 5 law schools that you want to go to? And start asking around, like, who are the people that, went there? And of your friends, that applied last year or that are applying this year, have they started working on their personal statement? What was their statement like last year when they submitted? Could I get a copy of that? What did you find that you enjoyed about the process? What did you learn in the process? If I were to do it this year, what would you recommend to me? What advice do you have for me? These are going to be professors. These are going to be, people in law school now, people that finished law school a year or 2 ago, people in your family, people in your community, people you've met, classmates, etc. There's a whole group of people that are out there. And of course, the people here on this Zoom call, Dan, Dave, Andrea, myself, and others, we're going to know who did apply or who you should talk to. So reach out. You got to start building this reservoir of information and knowledge. And the reason why is, so say you apply to the U and you apply to the Y. Well, those are 2 very different schools. So you applied to University of Washington and the University of Oregon, 2 very different schools, 2 different communities. So you're going to start researching, a little bit about those schools online and find out, what it is they're looking for. Maybe different lengths of statements. Maybe to one, the statement is really important. Maybe to another, it's not as important. Find out what you're getting into as you get into the process of writing the statement. So some of the things I want you to do is find editors, find people that are going to help you, and start, asking yourself and talking with others questions about, why you want to go to law school, what motivates you, what's your story. Start putting it down on paper. I want to become a lawyer because I want to go to law school because. So I say here, start, stop, twist, turn, shoot some hoops, find your spot. You gotta find, what you're good at. Are you good at free throws? Are you good at 3-point? Like where are you going to shoot your shot? How do you say it? How do you tell people you want to go to law school? And when you say it to the admissions committee in the statement, how are you really going to say it? How is it going to come out of your mouth? How does it look on paper? So write some every day, write a little bit, scribbles and scratches, doodles, the whole thing, get it out on paper. I call it the process, the writing process. You're going to write a little bit each day. You're going to shelve it. You're going to put it away. You're going to wake up in the morning. You're going to say, oh, I have this great thought. I'm going to write it down. Make sure it gets written down. I love to have a good night's rest and wake up in the morning and have, absolutely brand new thoughts. Get those down, write those down. So repeat, refine, get the results you want. So the process of writing, the process of gathering and deciding and building, what you're going to do here is so important. Okay. The basics, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So good lawyers, make their introduction, give their arguments, and their summation. right? A good storyteller catches you in the beginning, tells a great story, and has a takeaway in the end, a conclusion. So think about this. When I was writing my statement 30 years ago, I used this format. Who are you writing to? Okay, we're not writing to a judge. We're not writing to, some TikTok TV audience, social media, can't use a hashtag, we're not writing to our boss, we're not writing to, get paid, right? We are writing to a particular group of people, probably who you do not know, an admissions committee at a law school. These are powerful decision makers who have to make hard decisions. And so who are they? What do they want? What are they looking for? And this is where in the previous slides, you're going to be saying, I'm going to be talking to people that went through the process. They went to Duke. They know what Duke was looking for. They got in, they learned, they talked to a lot of people. So how can you communicate to this admissions committee that you are one of the people that they want? Again, I'm going to say there's no cookie cutter formula here. You can't write one statement and send it to 7 law schools and say, hey, I checked the box on my statement. You need to personalize this a little bit. You need to know who you're writing to. This committee, the committee at Harvard is going to be different from the committee at, McGeorge School of Law, So different kinds of law schools, different kinds of audiences. Know your audience. We're writing to a selection committee audience. And like I said, we're going to customize this. We're going to have all the information we need so that we save 7 different, application submissions. We're going to submit 1 to each school, and each of those papers, each of those statements is going to be perfect in the end for that one school that we send it to. Do not send the wrong one to the wrong school. So I ask, you're applying to the University of Chicago, Northwestern, Loyola, John Thomas School of Law, all these law schools in Chicago. So which essay are you going to use to which style, which purpose, which approach are you going to take with one versus the other? What is your connection to a clinical school versus a more academic school? Going to the university, so Indiana University in Indianapolis is different from Indiana University in Bloomington. The Indianapolis school is much more clinical than the more theoretical school in Bloomington. What's your connection to Indianapolis versus Bloomington? What's your connection to Provo versus Salt Lake? What is your connection to law schools in the Midwest or the Southwest? Texas, Arizona. Do you have a connection? Is this just a blank shoot in the dark? Like, I want to go to the best law school and this one's ranked number 8th in the nation and I'm going to apply to it. If that's your approach, figure out how to say what you're going to say in this statement so that they feel a connection with you. And it might be just something about the law school community as opposed to the city, the town, the state. I appreciate the way the University of Texas at Austin has, elevated this program or that program or focused in this area of the law or that area of the law. That might be what they want to hear, that kind of thing, and then connect it to you. I have that same interest, etc. So when I was applying to law school, I found alumni from the law schools and connected to them, called them. I actually had a little bit of a sponsor at some of these schools, someone that could maybe send an email or let someone know that they'd encourage me to apply. And then of course you don't want to let that person down in writing a kind of an average to ordinary personal statement. You want to knock it out of the park with a great statement. So customize and personalize, very important. So I'm not going to propose a theme to you because you're going to propose a theme to me for your statement. But I'm going to tell you what it needs to hit. It needs to be compelling, authentic. It needs to tell your story, introduce you, and welcome other people into your world as you tell your story. I do think that by the end of this statement, the committee will want to meet you. In our family, we have a phrase: everyone has a name, everyone has a story. So what is your story? They will remember you because why? And so your theme will be wrapped around this, I've been searching on the internet. There's plenty of personal statements that are out there to be studied and looked at. And of course, they have themes. So the reason why is when you read my personal statement, you want to be able to tell that story to someone else. And so with the theme, think of a movie, think of a story, think of a novel. It has kind of a theme or a storyline to it. And that's what you're going to try and achieve here. I want you in your statement to exhibit certain things, certain traits, characteristics, qualities. I want them to understand that you're a person who has passion for, say, the rule of law, passion for child advocacy, passion for science education, out into the intellectual property world where we can save people from disease and, improve medicine and, that kind of a passion. Or, justice, for truth, what is your passion? It might be specific, it might be more general, but something related to the law, even intellectual property law, science and technology, name your passion, pick your passion. Everybody's going to want to know your path. How did you get here and where are you going? They want you to be a top graduate of the university, the law school, and then a top alumnus from the university so that, they can continue to be proud of you and, connect through you, students in the future. You're going to help build that law school after you're gone. So that's the kind of graduate that they're looking for. What kind of contribution are you going to make, to society through this graduate program, this professional education? The connection that you're going to make with the university. Character and integrity are the most important things that lawyers bring and carry into their practice. It's the number one thing. In fact, we have what's called the Character and Fitness Committee. If you do not meet character and fitness, you do not get to sit for the bar exam. So I say this not to discourage anyone, but encourage you to highlight in your statement that you're a person of character, you have integrity, a person of values, that you have meaning and purpose in your life beyond just the 9 to 5, the 8 to 6. You have interests and things that you do, areas that you're focused on. So some of the other things I want you to exhibit: authenticity, drive, ambition, motivation, what drives you. Again, they're going to have to figure out why you. And I do like this idea of togetherness, that together, the law school and me together, the two of us, we're going to be great together. Together, we can do great things. So, all right. You're going to have some, hopefully some takeaways from your statement. If you are on the bubble, you didn't have the grades, you didn't have the score, you don't have the letters of recommendation that compared to the others, and you are, like they say in March Madness, the last 4 out. You want to be on that bubble coming in, because not everybody's going to accept, that particular law school. You're on the wait list or you're on the bubble coming in. Your personal statement will be the deciding factor. I can almost guarantee it. That personal statement will lift up, a grade or two that are low, lift up a score that is low. If you're the last 4 in, to the top school you wanted to get into, it'll be because of your personal statement. I've heard countless stories from people, and I'm one of those that has that story. So if you get complimented on the day that you get to law school and they say, I remember your personal statement, you probably were in that category of just getting in by the skin of your teeth, and that personal statement helped you get there. So, and I do think the personal statement is good for a lot of other reasons besides getting into law school. Scholarships, people that want to meet you, The Alumni Association, down the road, when they find out, who are some of the students that you're proud of? Well, we're proud of these students, here and there. If you have a story that's been interesting and intriguing for people to tell and retell, alumni will hear it. Think about this as an elevator speech. If someone retells your story to someone else on the committee or within the faculty, then you're the elevator speech. They just told your story. Good for you. I do think that you want to use some flair, a little bit of style, but not too much. I call it no stumbles, no trips. Sometimes when I'm reading, student papers and young writers' papers and whatnot, the flowery language comes out, and people are trying to impress. And if you find yourself trying to impress too much, you need to scale it back. This should be your best writing, not too flamboyant. Don't flame out. Crisp, clean style, easy to read. Make sure that when people are reading your statement, they are not getting tripped up on one little transition here, or that the sentence is not too long, or the introduction, the introductory phrase doesn't get them confused or whatever. If you give it to 10 people and 9 of them stumble on that one spot, you need to rewrite that sentence, right? So make sure that your style is crisp and clean. I'm not going to say short sentences versus long sentences, but a variation, that kind of thing. So make sure that when someone who's a really good writer reads it, they like it, and they say, "Man, this is a good style. I like the style. It's going to be compelling." So again, similar story: precision, perfection. You cannot have a single mistake in this document. Whether you use an Oxford comma or not, be consistent, do it one way, do it the right way each time, each sentence, each paragraph. No mistakes, no single space here and double space there, not a single mistake. Check your justifications, check every item of punctuation, every comma, every semicolon, every colon, every dash, every parentheses. Anything that can be criticized, make sure that you are 100% on top of it. The people that really know how to write, have vetted it and like it. And if they don't like one part of it, hear them out. At the very end, I'll show you some writing resources from Utah State, but there's also, Chicago Manual Style, Strunk and Write. These should be on your shelf, right? So certainly in your laptop. All right, so no mistakes. I'm going to call these unforced errors. So now new off of basketball, now into baseball, right? So do not make mistakes that are easy to avoid. So being overly dramatic, a sympathy card, boasting, being boring, being vague, not getting to the point. I've kind of described over here on the right, sluggish, unsophisticated, any sort of grammatical error will be like a check mark, sorry, that might be a one-way ticket out of the process here. Being boring, don't waste my time. It's like ambiguous writing, not, vague references, horrible analogies. Like, don't make these mistakes. So, all right. I am fascinated by bragging. Bragging is very much like an element of being a professional that we have to figure out somehow. We have to kind of, and social media, everything, like toot our own horns a little bit, but bragging is looked down upon. And so I've kind of distinguished here saying, hey, your resume is kind of like, hey, I've done it all. I've done this. I've checked all these boxes. I have a million different things. I've been on dean's list, et cetera, et cetera. Get all that out in the resume. We understand what a resume is. So say it. Be careful with the best, the most, the superlatives, the number one, if it's true, say it in a way that, you can, but I do believe in understatement, get the facts out, but don't brag. But there's going to be a little bit of promotion in the resume. When you get to the personal statement, think of it differently. And I'm going to ask you, when you go to PoBev, what's it like? You like the story, right? You like hearing the narrative. Have you ever listened to the Moth Radio Hour? You're like, I love the Moth, like, anything like that, hearing the stories. Like, I want to tell that story to someone else. Someone's not bragging to me so I can brag to someone else. They're telling me an authentic story so I can literally retell it to someone else. So this personal statement, refrain from bragging. refuse it if you can. If you're uncomfortable cheering yourself, talking about yourself, let someone else write a paragraph or two about you. And then you read it and you say, that's the way I should say something like that. You're right. I did struggle with writing for a while, and then I learned how to write, when I, spent, 2 years writing for so-and-so as a technical writer. And now I really enjoy writing. Well, that's your story, Um, so be authentic, but be careful of bragging. Humility, honesty, the truth, they go a long way. All right. So what I remember most from 30 years ago and helping other people really is that there's going to be multiple drafts of this document. So think about how many times you've drafted a particular paper you submitted to a professor for a grade in a class. Okay, well, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, this is going to be one of those times where if you count them up, I mean, you're in the 10s, 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, and maybe the 39th draft is that you made 2 changes. You changed one word, a sentence, but each change that improves that document the next day, the next week, as you approach your submission deadline, is going to be appreciated by this committee. The closer you get to perfection, the more likely it is that this personal statement is really going to become an X factor for you. So I believe in multiple drafts. I've said, be the athlete with the soccer ball. They go everywhere with the soccer ball, on the team bus, at the restaurant, they've got the ball with them. Carry this draft with you. Show it to people, have it in hard copy, have it ready to email, to send, to share. Build this community of editors and let them edit and you edit. So there's some of my ideas as to why you want to edit and have others edit, is that editing is the way that this becomes, it's like a piece of art. You're sculpting it to perfection. So taking out the excess, any extraneous word, anything that doesn't need to be there, that can be said in 3 words as opposed to 6, you got to go with the 3, All right. I have talked a lot about this community of collaborators and whatnot, and I'm excited about some of these resources that I've found, but Utah State here online. So we have a phrase in our family: "Don't go solo, bro." Our oldest is a great kid and a graduate of Utah State, and we kind of started it with him, as he was our first one to go to Utah State, and I think that's when we started saying it, was "Don't go solo, bro." You got to find the resources. Ask for help. Don't go solo. Don't be satisfied with your friend that reads it and says, "Hey, that's great." Well, that's not helpful, unless it's perfect, and you've gone through a million drafts and you're ready to submit it, and they say, "Wow, this is the best one you've done of the 3 I've read or the 4 I've read. This is perfect. It's great. Okay, well, now we're ready to submit it." But if they look at it, the first time, 3 months before it's due, and they say, "I like it, it's great, send it." No, we need to get deeper into this. It's not ready yet. So find people that are on your team, so if your name's Sarah, build a team. Team Sarah, will you be part of my team? And say, I need editors. I need people to help me get this to be perfect. And can I show you 3 or 4 drafts over the next month? Yes, you can. Okay, well, I'll send you the first one. And hopefully that person says, don't send me one that's, half done. Send me one that you've really worked hard on, so I can, see your best effort, on week 1. And then they'll read it, they'll get it back to you, and they'll have some ideas, some critiques. You're welcoming those. You have to have those. You want them to be critical. If they're not critical, like I said, okay, fine, whatever. You need people to really help you craft and mold and shape this. So like I say, show it to anybody who will take the task seriously, and they're going to do it multiple times. So I really enjoyed finding some of these resources, and I think I'm going to go ahead and finish up here by telling you, I'll come back to the resources, saying that my personal statement, I think I remember 6 paragraphs, an intro and a conclusion, but then I had these 4 big paragraphs, and I broke them down into reading, writing, speaking, and service, and I kind of described myself in 4 columns. and the things that I wanted to do in law school, having done them in undergrad, and what I hope to do in my as a future lawyer. And I love to read, I love to write. I was a good speaker. I did debate in both college and high school. I wasn't afraid to speak. I knew I was going to be a leader. And then, of course, service. And as a lawyer, you speak a lot. So, and then service, I kind of described that as my main ambition, to be of service, my contribution, my connection. And it rang true with, the law schools that I applied to that, admitted me and obviously helped me out. So, all right. So I think I'm done. I'm going to give you my information here. Cell phone call, office phone call, email, send an email, find me on LinkedIn. And I'm going to go back to these writing resources that I think are really interesting at Utah State, and just show you what I found in preparation for this. So I found, some nice things like the Writing Resources Center, the Writing Center at Utah State. They've got all this great stuff ready for you. You feel weak about commas? Well, don't go solo, bro. Click on the commas. You learn about commas with these 7 rules. Well, I didn't know that when I was doing that, writing mine in college. I probably made a comma mistake. You have no excuse making a comma mistake, because USU Writing Center's got your back right here. So fragments, run-on sentences, passive voice, this is a good primer for you to go to when you have, when you're ready to write. The College of Science has a writing center. I was pretty excited to see this. In fact, I think I'm going to find one more. They have 2 pages here. Maybe this is more for scientific journal writing and whatnot, but they've got, great resources here. So there's the College of Science. I showed you a little bit of the Writing Center. Here's another page with some very helpful, get started pages to click on. I'm not saying that you have to do, have to go and get started with some of these resources at Utah State, but they're there. And like I say, don't go solo. You got a lot of resources. You got a lot of people that are interested in you. By the way, the university has an incentive here, a vested interest in you applying to law school. We want you to look good. You're an Aggie, like step it up to the top level. Let's show everybody that, you're a top candidate for admission to the law school. Okay, so I want to answer questions and I want to have a dialogue. I know Andrea is going to unmute everybody and we're going to just dive right in here. So thanks.
Excellent. And as we're making that transition, as Nate said, he does want to hear from you. So if you have questions, I can unmute you. I can allow you all to talk if you want to join in. Also, I would invite Dave, if you have any thoughts or anything you want to add to today's discussion, feel free to do so. And Dan, of course, as our resident CHaSS expert about all things related to pre-law, if you have questions to start Nate off, you're welcome to start us off there as well.
No question's a bad question. Keep them coming here. Let's go. I'm looking at all your names, by the way, so I'll track you down if you don't ask a question.
I have one to kick it off.
You bet, Dan.
I encourage students to visit law schools that they're considering applying to.
Right.
And I know you mentioned that each law school has a different kind of feel to it, or focus, or things like that. How did you decide where to go, and how did you change your personal statement to kind of go with that?
Yeah.
That idea of the different.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit. So I had a connection to the U. I had a connection to the Y. I had a connection to the University of Oregon. And then I had a connection to both Wisconsin and Indiana. So there's 5 schools that I applied to. I applied to a few more than that. I had a really strong connection to Indiana because I had lived in Indiana as a kid. My dad had been there on sabbatical as a history professor. And we had friends in Indiana. it had a really top program that my wife wanted to study in. And then it also, Indiana is one of the great language universities of the United States. And they have, I don't know how many PhDs in various languages, but tons. And I was very interested in language as well as my law school degree. So I kind of built a good paragraph, kind of like some sentences in my paragraphs, I should say, about how I had a connection to that law school, that I wanted to be a part of their success. They would make me successful. You know, I'd hoped to, during my law school time, to take some language classes that would help me in my future career. I don't think I mentioned my spouse, to be honest with you. I didn't do that. I know that's an interesting question, whether you do or don't. I chose not to. Yeah, I did not go visit that law school, by the way. This is back in the 90s when everybody was poor and didn't have any sort of Delta bucks to fly around the country. So I applied to law school sight unseen. I'd been to the U and the Y law school, and that was it, to be honest with you. So good question. And I'm glad, I hope I crystallized that answer for you. So yeah, other questions? We're gonna get Dave coming on here and telling us, you know, some of his memories of this experience, I hope.
Well, I'd be happy to. Let me jump in on a couple of things while folks are getting their questions ready.
Yeah.
My application predated yours, Nate, by about 16 years. And honestly, I can't remember a whole lot about my statement. But the things that you've mentioned here are spot on. One thing that I think you can do if you don't have the time or the dollars to go about the country visiting law schools, most law schools now produce a journal or something like that has their mission statement in. You can learn a lot about a law school by reading in their journals and their advertising materials. And if you can incorporate the law school's mission statement in your personal statement in some manner, that will really ring to those folks, because they were the ones that created the mission statement. And so you might look at that. Also, when I was looking at my law schools, I actually applied to 3: Utah, BYU, and Stanford. I made an appointment with the assistant admissions dean at each of those schools, and went and talked to them and asked them, what are you looking for in your applicants? I don't think there's any harm in asking. And they see your name when it comes in. They've already associated the face with the name, and that's helpful too. And most admissions offices will allow you to set an appointment and come in and visit with them before you make your application.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We've been watching our cute son go through that process. He did talk to the director of the program before he ever submitted an application, had a little interview with her. She encouraged him to do a few things. She learned a lot about him in the process. You know, medicine does this, you know, they require an interview. Law school doesn't require an interview, but I think you're right, Dave. The cold submission may not be the best submission. And so like a warmer submission where you've made a few contacts and met a few people, and maybe in your statement, you can say, I really enjoyed, you know, having conversations with so-and-so and so-and-so, and it really helped me decide to choose this law school as my number one choice of the law school I really want to attend, you know? That's a great idea. Yeah. And today's day and age, Zoom, you know, virtual, you know, phone calls, internet, it's all great.
Every dean of admissions I've talked to, and I've probably talked to 25 just in the last 3 months, has always mentioned, have your students contact us. We love to talk. Some will put you up for the night. Some have apartments available. Some actually reimburse for travel now. So
yep.
It's a little bit easier to get around. We've got, and with Zoom and things like that, it's a lot easier to visit now than it used to be. A lot of times you can Zoom in on a class, things like that. And they love interest. So
Yep.
at least all the ones I've talked to have said they do. Who knows for sure, but
Yep.
they've all said they do. So.
Yep. And you should probably meet a student or two through the process and then say, hey, would you mind sharing with me your statement that you submitted last year, or 2 years ago? Oh, sure, no problem. Let me send it to you. I don't want anybody to copy anybody's statement. I made it very clear earlier, authenticity. You sit down, you figure this out. You can look at other stuff, but put it onto a pile, and then you take the time, you be the thinker, you write your own statement. It's going to take you a month, 2 months, 3 months of writing to figure this all out, make it perfect. And your statement will not look like anyone else's. Maybe there's some structure, some headings, an intro, a conclusion, some ideas that we're all having here, but your story is so unique and your path is so unique. They need to hear it. If you are cookie cutter, like, you're exactly the same as the next guy, well, the next guy is going to have a GPA 1 point higher than you. They're going to pick the next guy. So you got to distinguish yourself from the person that has the better GPA, so that when that person gets waitlisted, they're like, you know what, this is a tough decision, a little bit better applicant A to applicant B, but man, applicant B has really brought on like great, effort the last 2 years. Look at those grades the last 2 years. Look at the effort, look at the leadership, look at the service, and they'll make a case for you, and then they'll vote, and boom, you're going to get it. I do think that these statements are way more important than people realize. So, yeah.
So
Okay.
Nate, I see that we have a question
Oh, good.
about the timing. So maybe you could speak a bit more to the person is asking, how soon should you apply to law school? So, obviously people are on a timeline to when they want to go to law school, but can you maybe speak a bit about the process and maybe at what points along the way you would start doing some of these things to prepare yourself to be ready when you are ready to apply?
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna put it in context to the exam. You've got to figure out when to take the LSAT, and we could talk about the LSAT for many more hours in the personal statement. So when you are ready to take the LSAT, means that you're ready to apply for law school. The LSAT is going to be the driving force. So graduation from undergrad and the LSAT are your driving elements, right? And Dan's going to correct me on all this stuff when I make a mistake, but essentially, students always say to me, like, I don't have time to study for the LSAT. I don't have time to do this or that. So I think I'm going to graduate and then study for the LSAT. And I'm like, well, you may want to figure this out, because graduating, going straight to law school is very much what a lot of people have been doing forever. In my law school, you were in the minority if you had work experience. Most people came straight from undergrad to the professional school with no break, just the summer break. So, taking the LSAT, end of your junior year, start of your senior year, getting that score so that you can, evaluate it, maybe take the LSAT one more time kind of thing, and then have that LSAT ready to go. And I'm going to kind of pick this holiday time frame, December, January. You're kind of writing your statement, you're getting letters of recommendation together, and then you're applying to get, notification in April, May, I don't know if you can get earlier than that, but that you've been accepted, and then, that's when you're graduating, that's when you're making decisions, and hopefully you have 2, 3, 4, 5 schools that are all competing for you. And, you just get to make the best decision. And again, we could do a whole long discussion about cost versus value versus rankings versus location. And I've been through hundreds of conversations like that, but yeah, the timing is really important. So if you can't do anything in your senior year and you definitely want to work, and then of course, law schools are saying, well, where did you work for a year? Where did you work for 2 years? Where did you work for 3 years? And then you come to law school, maybe not as a precise student, that has been working really hard in an academic setting, but now you've got some work experience. It'll be interesting. You'll be maybe a little bit older or whatnot, but I do think that fall setting, you're going to be really focused on your statement, your LSAT, and getting everything together. So maybe that's why we're doing this on September 28th. Take the LSAT. Dan, you tell me, what do you're doing this every day. I'm going to defer to you.
About 2008 or 9, when the kind of the crash hit, most law schools started getting a little bit desperate.
It's true.
And almost everybody's on rolling admissions now.
That's right.
So the rule of thumb is by Halloween now instead of Christmas.
Wow.
So they've moved it up a little bit. I just got a letter from Penn State. It says, make sure your students get their stuff in early. We have the most seats and the most money. And so there's another thing that they're starting to do now that's newer, that if you will disavow, so to speak, all your other applications and take an immediate acceptance,
Yep.
they'll do an immediate acceptance too. So if you have
Yeah.
a specific school, they'll do that too, but you kind of have to say, no, I will come here. And, you know, and that's done quite early. I've had a lot of people know by Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And those are students that have good GPA, good LSAT, you know, didn't flub the personal statement, good letters of recommendation.
Right.
And it's like, well, this person's, you're going to meet these in the matrices, you're going to meet the criteria for, you know, high GPA, good LSAT, you know.
Right. Now, they do tell students that if they're a little bit later in the process, don't worry, they always save seats till the end, because they get a good applicants that change their mind later. So that's still an option. But for the, you know, it's just like going to the grocery store for biggest selection, show up a little early. So, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I have to move my thing up by 2 months.
Yeah, and actually, like I said, that's a fairly recent phenomenon. That kind of started about in the, you know, 2008 through 2012 thing. When
Are people taking the LSAT at the end of their junior year over the summer?
Yeah, April and June now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I remember taking it in the fall.
Yeah, I took my first one in December. I mean, back then it was, that was kind of, and everybody took it cold back then too. It seemed like.
We only took it once. Yeah, it's like the ACT you take once, the LSAT you take once. Nowadays you take it multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to rein that one back in again. No more than 3 times a year and no more than 7 times per lifetime.
Man, I do not want to take that test 7 times.
Oh, I wouldn't want to pay for it. We did another question that came in. It said, you mentioned that the personal statement is important beyond law school. Can you give us an example of when that was true for you?
Okay, well, I told you we couldn't brag, but I have a deep connection to the BYU Law School, and it's because the dean of the BYU Law School at the time that I applied loved my personal statement. So fast forward to how many years after that, I didn't go to BYU. He encouraged me, personally called me and said, we really want you to come to BYU. We loved your statement. You know, you have the grades, you have the LSAT. Please come to the Y. And I said, oh, I appreciate it, but I'm not going to go. So this is Dean Reese Hansen. And so fast forward, I'm going to say 10 years after I finished law school, he and I served on a very important board together. And he continued to tell people that I had a really really excellent, you know, personal statement. He's like, well, this is Nate Alder. He's a lawyer in Salt Lake. By the way, he had one of the best personal statements of the year that he applied to our law school. And we immediately admitted him, and we were so sad we didn't get him. And I was like, I mean, that personal statement means something to people, you know? So you're writing a statement to the committee, you know, however many people are on that committee, you've customized it for that committee, you submitted it to those people, and they appreciated it, and you said all the right things, and they just won't forget it, you know? So Dean Hansen has always, you know, reminded me of that, and I've gone down and taught, and I've, you know, had a lot of connections with students and professors and administrators over the years down there, encouraged Utah State Aggies to go there, you know, to school, and I've helped recruit for the Y, and, you know, so it's like, you know, it's a connection. We just always had a connection. He connected with me because of my statement. I will say, this is not a law school story, but, you know, my son, who's in graduate school, you know, he went and met with that particular director, And when she did get his personal statement and all of his other materials, she started talking around the faculty that we have this young person who has this specific interest. Here's his statement. I'm going to send it to you. And by the time, even before he got to his program, in the months before, people knew who he was. You don't show up cold, you show up, kind of advanced. So the statement is just, plus I think the other answer is, I've been able to use the statement by sending it to other people and saying, here's what I did. And I've been able to help people edit theirs and prepare theirs because I spent so much time on it and took so much pride in it. So, and then the other thing that's interesting, I spent so much time on the personal statement that it kind of flowed over to my resume. And so I wanted my resume to be perfect. And so now my kids, one of whom's on this call, knows that I am like a resume vulture. Like I really want that resume to be perfect. And so I help them edit theirs. And, I just think that when you submit a document to someone who's going to give you a job or an opportunity or, admission to a program, it's got to be perfect, so, anyway, submit it to some mock groups first, your friends, your family, etc. Get them to look at it, reject it, and then say, why did they reject it? Well, they rejected it because this sentence is, out of whack with the previous sentence. It doesn't relate, the transition was bad. I didn't like your essay. Oh, great. Let's fix it now before we actually submit it, so same for everything's the same, resumes, personal statements, both basically the same story. That's a long answer. Sorry about that. Okay, I want to hear a student question. We got 5 minutes here. Somebody give me their voice. 2021, the Zoom world, please.
Well, and while we're waiting, Nate, I know that one thing that students are also shy about, and I know today's focused on personal statements, but can you speak to the importance of letters of recommendation and making connections with your faculty early so that you can ask for those as well?
So Eric's telling me that he can't unmute because it's a webinar. Maybe
I can, if Eric has a question, I'm happy to unmute
yeah,
him
Eric,
so that he
I
can ask one.
apologize. Andrew, say one more time the question.
I just wondered if you could speak just briefly to the importance of letters of recommendation and making connections with faculty early so that students have that available as part of their strong law school application. And after you've answered that, Eric, I'd be happy to unmute you if you'd like to ask Nate a question directly.
The letters of recommendation are interesting because those were more of the kind of generic to each of the schools, like you ask, I asked the president of the university, Stan Kazare, to write me a letter of recommendation to 7 schools. I couldn't go to him and say, now for this one, I want you to say this, and for that one, I want you to say that. I didn't do that. He wrote one letter, and then his secretary changed each of the headings to go to a different group. So, but I did go to a couple of lawyers that had been to different schools and asked them if they wouldn't mind, as a practitioner, as a lawyer, an alum, send a note of encouragement to someone in the school that they knew that they had encouraged me to apply. And there was a particular lawyer in St. George who I'd never met before that had gone to Indiana that had kind of heard about my application through the grapevine. So I called him and I said, would you be willing to do that? And it turned out to be a really big deal. So I had my 3 letters of recommendation to Indiana, plus, one of their alums writing to the admissions committee saying, I've heard about this young person. I can vouch for him. I write those letters to people. In fact, I'll tell you a story. BYU accepts 2 transfer students every year, not 3. And this one particular year, they took one from Tulsa and one from the University of Idaho, Moscow. And I wrote an email on behalf of the student from Tulsa. And the dean wrote back to me and said, it's so nice that you could help me make this decision because we get 30 or 40 of these every year. After your first year, you can transfer to a different school. They're very hard to get. And I had written an email on this person's behalf and given him some links to this guy was a volleyball player, and had a little bit of some fame to him or whatever. And then he was really talented, and I got to know him, and I said, I think he'll be a great fit for you guys at BYU. And sure enough, he was one of the two that got in. So letters of recommendation. So the question is like, who do you get? Do you get the president of the university or your professor you've taken 3 classes from? And that's always a good question. And we just need to figure that out each time. I had a great connection to Stan Kazarian because he'd known me my whole life. And I'd served on his president's council plus faculty senate. And he and I had squared off on a bunch of things because I was a student leader in USUSA. So he wrote a great letter for me. And I'm telling you, it helped a lot. There's no doubt about it. And then I had Norm Jones, and Norm helped a lot, So I mean, like, I was in good shape,
I think you make a really good point there, Nate. We've heard, Dan and I have spoken to, the former dean of admissions at BYU Law School, and she made a very good point that, if you're asking Orrin Hatch to write you a letter of recommendation, but Orrin doesn't know you, and
Yep.
he only tangentially knows one of your parents and doesn't write a very good letter of recommendation. Right. It's maybe, I like the way you distinguish between a note of encouragement versus a letter of recommendation, and how you really do want to sort of emphasize or prioritize those people who know you and can say good things about you over a big name. But if you have a big name who knows you and can help, that doesn't hurt either.
They've got to deliver the punch. If they can't, they might be DQ'd. Yeah.
Exactly. So with the few remaining moments we have, I do want to spend just a tiny bit of time. Both Nate and Dave, can you just remind us briefly where students can go from here as far as using you as potential resources, getting started with this process? We had 10 students attend today. I'm sure we'll have many more watch this online. If someone's coming to this either today or online, what are the next things they should do, and how can either of you help them with that process?
I'll go first. I'm going to share my screen back again. Just so you have my phone number. Feel free to text me, 801-891-4985, or call, and my office line, link with me, or send me an email, nathan.alder@chrisgen.com. I am happy to help you with anything that you might have. I'm going to send you to resources at Utah State, but if you need a confidential kind of like, I'm debating between this professor and that professor, who would you choose? I might give you an opinion. I did say in one of my slides, you got to be an independent thinker. I might give you some advice, and it might be bad advice, and it's bad advice. So be independent of me. But if I give good advice, then, great. But like Dan showed you today, I'm 2 months off on my schedule because I'm an old timer. So I'm glad to be corrected on that. But feel free to call me and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Law School. Do you know anything about it? Could you help me with some connections? And I'm like, sure, you bet. What do you want to know? I do have connections down there. So it's like, I'd like to submit my paper to you to read. I'd be happy to read your paper. It's not going to take me too long. I'm going to call you up and then say, I think this is a good paper, but I do these 3 things, so I'm happy to take that time. I know Dave is as well, so I'm going to pitch over to Dave here.
Thanks, Nate. I don't have a screen to put up, but Andrea, you have my contact information. For those of you who are taking notes, my office number is 801-990-0500, and email is dave@hbcfirm.com. And just to reiterate what Nate said, I too am more than happy to review letters or personal statements. I'm happy to give some advice on recommendation letters, and maybe some advice on how you might set up a meeting with an admissions officer to law school that you're interested in. Like Nate, we've been practicing a long time. We know a lot of people, and we're happy to share that experience with you, and hopefully give you a head start on some contacts that will be very beneficial in the future.
Well, I really appreciate you both. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Thank you, Nate, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dave, for being willing to help students with additional resources as they move forward and want some extra eyes on things. Alumni like you make my job so easy, because that is really the great thing about the Aggies at USU. They're always willing to help a fellow Aggie. And students, I really encourage you to make use of our alumni resources. People like Nate, for example, is very active on LinkedIn. There's so many ways you can get in touch with our alumni, and you'd be silly to, as they said earlier, apply in the dark without making some connections ahead of time and getting some feedback about your process. So please take advantage of this and make time to reach out to people like Nate and Dave. And I do want to let everyone know about another event we have coming up next month. So we will be hosting Kimberly Smith for our October pre-law series. She will be on October 28th at 4 p.m. We're hoping to have that be an in-person event. And she is a judicial clerk. She's currently in her second judicial clerkship, which is something that a lot of lawyers do between law school and their professional careers. So it's an important stepping stone. And if you'd like to come learn more about that, we hope you'll join us at our next event in October. And of course, if you have any questions today, or you missed the information that was shared in the chat, for example, you're watching the recording or you want to follow up, or you missed out on the contact information that was provided, you can also follow up with me or with Dan. We'd be happy to direct you or connect you as needed. And with that, unless there are any other questions, I do just want to thank our panelists, Nate Alder. I want to thank Dave Hershey for being here as well. And I do want to encourage everyone to make good on today's information and to put it to use, and to connect with these fabulous alumni. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. I wish you a wonderful afternoon, and I hope that you will come back and see us next month. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.